Hello friends, I went out this morning to do something that I've not really ever done before, astrophotography. I used my new Nikon Z7, and in this video I will share with you a couple of the photos that I captured this morning. It was incredible, and also some updates on the Z7 in how I've been preparing for the review of it. So let's get going. So I've taken some notes down on the different things that I have been doing with the camera so that I can share a photo or two, from all my little tests along the way. So let's start with the lenses that I have used with the Z7. So far I've used the kit lens that I got with it, the 24 to 70 millimeter f4. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention that I am using the Z7 and that kit lens to film me right now. That's why it's not in my hand to show you. Yeah, doing really good. I actually have a video monitor on top that is new that I'm also working on reviewing, so we'll see how this goes. Okay, lenses, the kit lens. Also, I have used the adapter, the FTZ adapter, with the 85 millimeter f1.8 lens and the 200 to 500 f5.6 lens. All three lenses have done great. I'll kind of tell you what I used these for along the way. Let me go through kind of the types of photography and the situations that I have put myself in and share with you a photo or two from each situation and kind of my thoughts in each situation about the camera. Starting out with nature and landscape. That's the first thing I did with this camera. I actually unboxed it out in nature and then filmed it and took a few photos in, the hour before it was too dark to take any more photos. And then the next day headed out to the Grand Canyon. So it was no surprise that this camera did well in those situations. I didn't expect there to be any image quality issues. It did great. I guess what I was thinking about while I was using the camera in those first couple of days was just getting to know it, getting to know the ergonomics, getting the muscle memory for all of the buttons, because the button and dial schemes are a little bit different on this camera than they are on my Nikon DSLRs. So yeah, I was just getting to know it, and I liked it, no problems. There's always a little bit of growing pains trying to get used to something new. The body itself is different, so the viewfinder actually kind of sticks out of the back of the camera, and I was raising it to my face one time and just hit my nose with the viewfinder. It was kind of embarrassing, but whatever, these things happen. So while I was at the Grand Canyon, I did test out the autofocus a little bit by taking some photos of a few ravens flying overhead and also with Raymond just running towards me on the path. Just kind of trying to get to know, how to set autofocus on this camera and also how the camera does with autofocus. I have heard from a couple of sources that they had issues with autofocus. Either it isn't consistent or it just can't find autofocus. However, I've not found any issues yet. I've not used it extensively, so I can't say for sure what I will be saying in the review, but so far I just haven't found any issues. It had no problem finding focus quickly, not as quick as say like my D500, but quickly. And yeah, I just haven't found it to be inconsistent or anything. So I'll keep you up to date on that, but just talking to you about my experience and how I shoot, my technique. I was shooting handheld with the 200 to 500 millimeter for those shots at the Grand Canyon. Yeah, I just didn't have any issues. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. One of my future projects, which I will talk to you about in just a minute, is actually action. So I will be doing kind of a more in-depth test on it in actually 3 different situations. I have them all planned out already. But anyway, enough about that. Moving on to the next situation, I took it to a museum. So lower light conditions, I was really just kind of flexing the muscles of image quality and higher ISO performance, and also just getting to know the camera still. Seeing how quickly, as I get to know the camera, how quickly I can make settings changes and all of that. One thing that I was kind of surprised about at the museum was that I consciously realized how nice it was to have a smaller camera body, a smaller and lighter camera body. I'm sorry, there's birds flying around. I don't know if you all can hear that, but there's like birds cawing and screeching every so often. Sorry about that. So anyway, I enjoyed that the camera was a little bit smaller, and that was a bit surprising to me because I was just walking around the museum. That being said, I kind of have a shoulder issue right now, so I am super sensitive to everything because my shoulder hurts, so I'm trying to be really careful with things, so it was nice to have a smaller camera. On to the night sky photos. So, the first kind of night sky thing I did was pre-sunrise. I was just waiting around for sunrise, and it was a moon that was waning. So we just had a little tiny sliver of a moon. I had the 200 to 500 on the camera. I shot handheld, and it was great. Really liked those moon photos. That was awesome. But then what I did this morning was take the camera out with its kit lens and my tripod to do the astrophotography. And I think that I've caught the bug. So many of you have asked me to do astrophotography over the years, and I have done, I've played around with my telescope and adapting my V1 to it, my Nikon 1 V1. I've done shooting the moon just with a telephoto lens, but I really haven't shared much of it with you, and I have not sat down, gone out in the dark with my tripod and my camera, and really devoted myself to capturing the stars. And oh my gosh, that was delightful this morning. It was freezing, but it was delightful. I definitely want to go back out when I will be able to see the Milky Way a little bit better. It was kind of hiding from me this morning. And it was cool. There were a few clouds in the sky, so I just feel like that added interest, and I want to do more and more of it. So, one thing that occurred to me while I was out there was that the buttons and dials, the buttons on this camera, they don't illuminate as like some of the other newer Nikons do, like my D500 buttons illuminate. And when I first got there and I set the camera on the tripod and it was dark out, I did have my headlamp, but it was in the car. I just didn't use it. And I was like, oh shoot, I better go get a light. Where's my phone? I need to turn my flashlight on so I can see where my buttons are. But I was surprised to find out that I actually knew where all my buttons were. So I didn't end up being bothered by the fact that the buttons weren't illuminated, because I just knew where everything was, so it wasn't an issue for me. So that's something that I have harped on in previous videos before, is that the more you know your camera, the easier time you'll have in adverse conditions. For example, it was freezing this morning. I was wearing gloves, which makes, I'm less dexterous, and it was completely dark. I could not see anything. There were no lights, but I didn't have a problem doing settings changes on my cameras. Let's see. Another thing that I did that was a pleasant surprise was portraits in the studio. Now, I say it was a pleasant surprise because I guess it was really the snap bridge part that was a pleasant surprise for me, because in the past I've tried to use snap bridge with my D500 and I really had issues with it. In the beginning it was terrible. It got a little bit better because Nikon updated it, and then over time I use it sometimes with the D500, but it's a pain. It's a pain. However, I was setting up to take self-portraits in the studio, and the Z7 and SnapBridge work together really well. I couldn't believe it. I still wish it was faster to connect, but it connected much faster than my D500. It continued working. It didn't lose connection while I was sitting in the studio taking photos of myself. Very happy, very happy. And I just feel like the camera was quite responsive. I actually took some photos of Raymond as well, and I was happy with how responsive the camera was in the studio. I didn't have any issues with autofocus. I didn't have, because these were lower light portraits, No issues at all. So yeah, really good. I will be sharing the full project of my self-portraits on Friday of this week, so make sure you check back. So the last kind of thing that I've been testing out is video. So I used it handheld for video a little bit. I was pleasantly surprised by the in-body stabilization, and so far I am happy with the continuous autofocus during video. So as I'm standing here, I can look up and see on my video screen that I am in focus and I'm staying in focus. And I've tried things like turning to the side and turning back real quick and seeing if I'm still in focus, and it seems to be working well so far. So more to come on that. Okay, and then just the last few notes that I have written down weren't really things that I noticed specifically along the way, but just overall as I'm thinking about it. I really like the ergonomics of this camera. It's very easy to hold. It's lighter and smaller, so that's nice, but it's still very easy to hold in my hand. So that's nice. The buttons and dials configuration is different from my other cameras, so it's definitely taking some getting used to. I think I'm okay with everything, but I do think that I will be adjusting some of the functions. So, and that's really easy to do in the menus. So I haven't done it yet, but I'm thinking about it, especially the custom function buttons on the front of the camera. And the last thing I wanted to hit on before I move on to my future plans is this idea of banding. So you may have seen that DP Review put out a part of their review, or first impressions, I guess, that talked about the image quality on the Z7 not being able to be like fully the same as the D850, because when you bring the shadows up 6 EV, when you bring them up 6 stops, there's banding. So I saw that and I was like, initially I went, oh no, like I was scared. But I had been using the camera. I hadn't noticed any issues, but I also hadn't really been in any super low light situations where I had noticed that. So I actually went into my photos, I opened up Photoshop, I pulled raw images in, and I was in some situations, in some photos where I did expose for the sky and my foreground, like trees, were black in the image. So I tried to bring those up. I brought them up 2 stops, 4 stops, 6 stops, 8 stops, and I never saw banding. So I have no doubt that DP Review isn't making it up, but I don't really know exactly what situation they were in to get that. Looking at their settings, it looks like they were in a very low light situation to start out with. And I guess I don't get it. I'm not sure why I'm not seeing it, but they did. So I don't know. I'm not seeing it. But again, I'm going to be in situations like that again. I am going to do some more testing on it, because at this point, after looking at my images and really zooming in, I zoomed into 200% and I didn't see it. So even at 8 stops up. So we'll see. Let's talk about my future plans. Finally, let's wrap this thing up. Now, my future plans are to share the portraits on Friday. Like I said, I did take some portraits of Raymond, but the main purpose was that I was doing self-portraits of myself so that I could share them in a project, really show you guys the image quality and everything of the camera. What else? Oh, Raymond also took some photos of me on that day. He got antsy. He was like, I want to take some photos too. So I think he's actually going to share those in his Raymond show next week. I'm sorry, there's a truck that's coming with a trailer, so we need to take a moment. Okay, we were getting closer to bumping up on my time limit on the file, so I adjusted exposure because I'm outside, stuff happens, exposure changes. And battery life looks great, by the way. I'm still showing as all of my, battery bars, and I started with a fully charged battery. Okay, that's something I should have talked about, was battery life. I've had no issues with battery life. I was afraid of that. So that was the biggest fear that I had about this camera, was that the battery life wouldn't be up to my standards, and it seems to be, so that's good. I do have it on airplane mode, just so full full disclosure right now. Okay, future plans. Moving on, the portraits and then action. I mentioned that a little bit. I have these 3 situations that I want to use. I'm going to try to use them. I want to get Raymond on his bike again, so that I can track him using that. I think I'd really like to get him on the road so he can really get going fast. And we'll see how that goes, if I can talk him into that. And then I was also going to do some kind of self-portraits in the same vein, doing some action shots, just running around in front of the camera, and see how the camera does with autofocus in that situation. And then also something a little less predictable. So I know a puppy that I might be able to use, or some birds, if I can find some birds, which I don't see any birds right now, but I can hear them. So we'll see if I can just take some right now when I'm done with this filming. And then the last few things are continuing to work with video on this, because one thing that I want to do is I actually want to try to do a whole adventure video using just this camera. So rather than having my action camera and my gimbal camera and my DSLR to take still photos, I want to use this for everything. That was the purpose of this camera for me personally. So we have some beautiful fall colors here in northern Arizona right now. So maybe tomorrow I'll go out. I'm very excited about that. I'm super excited to have a tool that I actually feel like has my back for everything. You know what I mean? So far I feel like this does. And then the last thing is the review, you guys. I'm working towards getting that full review up, but I hope you kind of have an idea of how I feel about the camera. I feel like it's not the ultimate give me everything I could possibly want camera, but I do think that it is meeting my needs, and that's what I'm looking for. That's what I expected, what I hoped for, and that's what I'm getting. So I can't say too much bad about it right now. Like I said, I will continue on with looking at the banding issue, looking at the autofocus stuff, but so far in practical situations that I've been in, challenging situations, but practical situations, I haven't had any issues. So I guess that's good, right? I know it's not exciting drama, but it seems good to me that the camera is actually doing its job. So anyway, guys, this video is too long. Sorry about that. I will talk to you soon. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications and stuff, because I do have portraits coming, and then probably this fall colors adventure that I kind of just made up as I was talking to you, and anything. Anyway, that's all, guys. Talk to you soon.